So the servicing company, for instance, Countrywide, we were talking about a minute ago, has to check on a Fannie Mae mortgage. They'd have to check with the PMI company, and they may have to check with their actual owner of the loan, the investor. And you won't, as a negotiator, you've got to talk that person that's at Countrywide into being your new negotiator and doing your job for you, in a sense.
That is correct. That's correct. And that can be that can be easier said than done. Unfortunately, these folks, by and large, are not paid on commission. They're not necessarily motivated to get that particular transaction closed. We've actually had to go to the extreme of working directly with the Office of the President at Countrywide. And you know, if you've got enough volume, you can do that, and it definitely helps, because in a situation where you've got a negotiator who's perhaps a little apathetic about getting the transaction closed, if you can escalate that to the right person, oftentimes they'll get involved and they'll make it happen when it otherwise may not have.
So this is the first time I'm realizing that there's that much of a market, because I was still on the old mindset that you were talking about a while ago, where the listing agent does a lot of this work. Find a quality listing agent. They'll be able to pull the multiple listing statistics of days on the market, inventory competing, these kinds of things, showing that the market is soft, giving them the bank a reasonable reason to write down the mortgage. But you're saying the professional negotiating company, like you have and others have coming in, is taking that burden off the listing agent and is doing a better job because they're able to stay on it. What kind of fees are associated with, typically, with someone doing that?
Again, that fee generally comes out of the listing agent's commission, so it shouldn't ever be a fee that the homeowner has to pay. And it can range anywhere from 1/2 of the listing office commission to 1/3 of the overall commission paid in the transaction, whereas that commission would be split between the listing office, the selling office, and the short sale negotiation services provider.
So in a 6% world, that could be anywhere from 1.5 to 2 points.
That's pretty accurate, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. And are these negotiators typically real estate licensed because they're getting into the commission, or is it just some kind of flat fee calculated the same way?
You know, ultimately they need to be licensed to be able to be paid out of the real estate transaction. Right. And I will tell you that there are a lot of small companies, a lot of mortgage brokers who are hurting for business, a lot of real estate agents that are hurting for business that may or may not possess the proper licensing to receive that referral fee. So selecting a negotiation firm is very, very important, and homework should be done very, very carefully to make sure that they are licensed in the state that they're operating out of. And that doesn't mean they need to be necessarily licensed in every state they're doing business in, but they do need to have an active real estate brokerage license in order to collect
and that state needs to be reciprocal with their where their license is placed. Yeah.
Yep.
So in other words, you know, I'm licensed in the state of Tennessee, but for instance, Mississippi or other states, most of the other states are reciprocal with us, so I could do that legally. But if they're not licensed, this could be an illegal transaction. So you need to be real careful, because that helps you weed out some of the turkeys that would be heading into the, oh, I can get rich now helping people negotiate their short sale deal.
There's a lot of that out there. You know, another big part of that problem is that a lot of these companies now are outsourcing their negotiations. So rather than having a room full of negotiators, their negotiators are spread out all over the country, so you have little or no oversight. If someone's out of town, there's no one to cover their desk. Files, I've seen files that other companies sit for. I have one company in particular that I know that had 75 files sit for 3 weeks without being touched, and because someone was on vacation. So it's really important to make sure that oversight is there, and that there's coverage when someone's out of town.
So why does a mortgage company choose to take $100,000 less than is owed to them?
You know, ultimately, a short sale saves the mortgage company roughly 14% over a foreclosure. It's much less expensive for them to short sell a property than it is to take it back in foreclosure, pay the attorney's fees, pay the collection fees, pay to remarket the property, pay another real estate agent a higher commission than they would in a short sale to get the transaction sold and closed. It's much less expensive for the mortgage company, and quite frankly, they save a lot of carrying costs on that money as well. They don't have to sit on that money for, you know, anywhere from 12 to 18 months sometimes. Instead, they can get this transaction closed out, get this off their books, and that has a major impact on the mortgage company's credit rating as well. It affects their ability to borrow more money.
Now, if it's an FHA or a VA, they've got a government guarantee on 100% of the loan. Why would they take a short sale, do they? You
know, the mortgage insurance companies will discount that as well, and they'll kick in. It's just like any other, you know, it's like a lawsuit. You know, it's cheaper for the mortgage insurance company to pay 10% of it maybe than it is to insure a gap of 40%. So it actually makes sense for all parties more often than not to do that short sale. Very, very rarely do they really not want to do the short sale. I would say more often than not, when a short sale is denied by a lender, it's not because they don't want to short sell the property. It's because that particular transaction either didn't qualify or didn't look good to them for one reason or another.
And so it's lack of information. So you guys end up being information gatherers.
Yes.
Are you seeing a lot of deed in lieu of foreclosures? Talk about what that is and how many of those you're seeing.
You know, deed in lieu of foreclosure is fairly rare even in today's market, and a lot of lenders will push for that because it makes the foreclosure process easier for them. I'm not a big fan of it because ultimately it shows up as a voluntary foreclosure on the credit report of the homeowner. So there's not really any advantage to the homeowner to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Oftentimes the lender will say, well, if you do a deed in lieu of foreclosure, we'll waive our right to receive a deficiency judgment. But then when you get to closing, you look at the closing documents, you'll see a paragraph in there that says that the lender reserves other rights and remedies as afforded by law. And that in and of itself means they can seek a deficiency.
Yeah, so it has to be without recourse or there's no benefit.
Correct.
Okay, meaning that they can't chase you. If you're going to give them your house, people, they can't chase you for the difference later. That's the only benefit of the deed in lieu of foreclosure.
And generally that's not going to happen in a deed in lieu.
Michael, good information. Good solid stuff, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you being on with us and telling us how this stuff works. All right, for more information, you can check out Michael's website at theshortsalecompany.com. And we're going to come back, take lots more real estate calls and emails coming right up. Don't miss a dime of this show tonight. Good stuff. It's a special real estate edition of the Dave Ramsey Show.